Well, the cavalcade of just amazing films keeps going, and as I've said before, it's the great thing about the award season, especially the Oscars, is you see films that you mightn't otherwise see, but more importantly, you spend time with them in a different way. You often go to the theatre, you don't catch them later because you want to be part of the conversation. And that continues today with Phantom Thread by the great Paul Thomas Anderson, arguably the greatest filmmaker working right now in America. He's got some august company, but he's definitely in the conversation. So we're going to do our usual thing. Should you see the film? Then I'll talk about the themes in the film, and then we'll go to spoilers. So, well, this is a bit of a stupid thing. You have to see every Paul Thomas Anderson film. I've seen every film except his first film, Hard Eight, and it wasn't until long ago that I realized he directed Hard Eight. I just kind of thought it was always a bit of a Pulp Fiction knockoff, and now I really do need to catch up with that at some point. So you always have to see his films. This one is in the Oscar race, and it's got Daniel Day-Lewis. So if you're a film lover, it's tick, tick, tick. You got to go see this. It is an intense film. It's about 2 hours long, which is short for PTA, but it's definitely worth seeing. So we're going to come back and talk about it. Okay, bye. Okay, let's get into this. So it's Paul Thomas Anderson. What do we say about Paul Thomas Anderson? It's now been almost 2 decades. He's been one of the most influential filmmakers in the world. Every time he brings out a film, it is talked about in terms of prizes and such. And even when it isn't, like Inherent Vice, his last film, which I did not particularly enjoy, it still sparked a whole host of debates and really has its champions. So he is fantastic in that handful of filmmakers who writes, directs. He was the DOP on this film and really is at the top of his game. So he has set this movie in a world in which I have no interest at all. It's 1950s London. It's about a high-end couturier, the House of Woodcock, and it's headed up by this fragile genius, Reynolds Woodcock, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, and ably supported by his right-hand man, for want of a better term, Cyril, played by Leslie Manville. And into this very cloistered world comes this woman he meets, played by Vicky Krieps, and her name is Alma Elson. And he seduces her. She starts off as his lover. She then becomes his muse. And then the rest of the film is really a power struggle for her to be noticed and for her place in this very fastidious world. So, normally, if you told me that was the description of a movie, it goes well over 2 hours long, which is short for PTA, but still, you got to be concentrating there. I'd be like, I don't think this is going to be my cup of tea. And that is the fantastic thing about Oscar season and the award season generally is I will see films which I might not see. And in this case, I would have definitely seen this, but would I have seen it straight away? Would I have seen it at the cinema? I might have let this one go because I would have thought I have no interest in fashion house. At the turn of the century. So, what do we say about Daniel Day-Lewis? Now, he has said he's going to retire, that this is his last performance. My heart breaks because I consider him the greatest actor of his generation. Now, there's a few who fall behind him by not much, but in my book it goes Brando, De Niro, Daniel Day-Lewis. And he is brilliant in this. If you saw Gangs of New York, then There Will Be Blood, and then this, apart from that you recognize the human, because he can't change his head, you would have no idea that the same soul played all three roles. They are so different in every shape and form. He is just absolutely brilliant in this. There is something about what he delivers to a role. Like now, famously for this, he went and studied dressmaking with I think it was the New York Opera, if not the New York Opera, something like that. Tried to build a dress himself and was able to do it for his wife. I mean, it's just so that when you see him doing the scenes involving how to make a dress and how to sew, it looks totally believable. Same as when De Niro's boxing in Raging Bull. I mean, the rumor was that he could have gone pro, that he was probably in the top 10 boxers of that weight division. Like, I mean, these guys and women, because same with Meryl Streep, they're just a different genius kind of person. So you have Daniel Day-Lewis, and we'll talk a little bit more about him versus Gary Oldman, because I have a particular take on that. But the rest of the cast. So I'll just quickly talk about Leslie Manville, who is great as the sister, and there's one scene in where she puts her brother in a box, and that's about the one time she flexes her power, and you really look at that character differently after that. But she's just got this fantastic face, and most of the time she's just looking at the screen or looking at the characters, and she just looks like she could break any of them in half with just an arch of her eyebrow. I mean, she's really interesting. But the person I want to talk about, because we all know Daniel Day-Lewis, we know Leslie Manville, Vicky Krieps. Never heard of her. She's a Luxembourgian actress, but she's worked in Europe for a long time, and she's had little roles in here and there, but certainly I had forgotten her. I mean, she's been in films I've seen, but I didn't remember her. So, imagine this. It's going to be pretty much a two-hander, you and Daniel Day-Lewis, sometimes a three-hander with Leslie Manville. So you're going to have to match it with the greatest actor of our generation. And the film fails if you're not able to bring your A game. And really, you leave this thinking Daniel Day-Lewis is a genius, but my God, who is this girl, this woman who has just matched him beat for beat? This is like boxing, for the world champion. They just go for it, and she is absolutely fantastic. I cannot believe that she hasn't been nominated for Best Actress. I love Meryl Streep, but The Post was pedestrian by any standards. An important film, but just an okay film in itself. And she should have got that nomination. I think I can only just, a lot of people hadn't seen this film, and certainly she had no brand recognition. They didn't know her name, because she is absolutely amazing. We'll talk a little bit more about her in spoilers. Look, this film is about what it is to be an artist, what the cost is to be a genius. That's one theme. Look, there's so many things in this film. And actually, I was struggling. Normally, I can really cut through a film and find the one or two elements I want to talk about. This is like if you got a diamond and you held it up to the sunlight and you turned it, and the light would come through one direction, and then you turn it again, and then you'd see something else. This is what this is. This is a gem. You turn it, and I would say I've only seen it once. It requires probably multiple viewings to actually read it completely. So let's go to spoilers, and then we can talk about it there. Okay, I'm going to read this because although I'm a big fan of mythology, I've got a whole stack of mythological books in my library. So as soon as I saw this, it hit an old memory. But I will have to read it. So if you know anything about Greek mythology, you'll know that there are the three fates. And what they do is, as the thread of life comes out, they spin it, cut it, and then put it into shape. And that is your destiny and the destiny of both gods and of men. And Clotho is the one who spins. And she is famous as a fate because she is the one who Zeus uses to bring down a monster named Typhon. And the way she does that is he is too strong. And so she poisons him with some fruit and is able to bring him down and gains ascendancy over him. This film is at once classical and completely modern. It's an alchemical work that only Anderson could probably bring off, in which you see that love is not always the love we imagine. This is a very romantic film. This is a film about what the cost is for your visions, whether they be of a genius type of this character or just your view of life, and the kind of offsets we all make to be with someone who we love. But it's also about if that person is also your muse / fate, then what are you willing to do to make that work? So this is a very interesting film. You have that whole aspect because, of course, we're in spoilers and we know that this man who is fastidious, controlling, probably obsessive compulsive disorder, finds this solace when, after being poisoned by Alma, he then discovers this feeling of being taken care of like a child, which is another big theme in this film of motherly love, of the fragility of this man's ego, and that he finds the greatest solace is being infanticized by Alma. So that we get to the ending in which he, and it's just fantastic acting. I'm nearly tearing up because if you watch this scene in which he knows he's going to be poisoned, he looks at the omelette, which is full of the poisoned mushrooms. Alma's just dribbled the water into the glass for seems like 10 seconds, knowing he hates noise when he's eating. And then he smiles as he crunches, and it's a big piece of mushroom. And he knows he's going to be poisoned, he's going to be reduced to a baby, and that she will take care of him. And that they are partners in crime here, that he cannot maintain his genius. He needs to rest every now and again and be taken care of. But because his work ethic won't let him, he has now found someone. They're a horrible couple who, between them, are incredible duo. And this is how he gets through. So that is fantastic. The whole thing with the mother, and that there's an earlier scene where he talks about how women are so superstitious, and it can be read as very misogynistic. But then there's a scene later on in which you find when he has sewed the beautiful wedding dress for the, I think, Belgian princess or something. He has put a little piece of material saying never cursed, and she rips it out because she is the only person who should be important to him, not this prince. She's quite jealous of him. But what it also tells you is he believes this. He believes in curses. He believes in fate. He believes in the way the world can turn on you, because the world did turn on him. It took away his mother, And when he descends into madness after being poisoned, he sees his mother. And it isn't like a very weak kind of hallucination. The mother is there. He believes in the afterlife. He believes in curses. He believes in superstition, even though he mocks women who believe in it. And again, it's this complexity of this character where sometimes you do these things where characters offset each other and it kind of doesn't work because you go, that guy would never do that. In this, you just go, wow, this guy is a deep, fractured man. Now let's talk about one of the best scenes in the whole film, because it's a really weird scene in some respects, and it's where the power changes. So early on in the film, very early, Daniel Day-Lewis' character has just seduced Alma, and they talk about having a staring contest, and she says, "You could never beat me in a staring contest." And you get the feeling by the end of the film that's bloody true. In this scene, the two of them are together at a wedding for a very rich person who is basically one of their biggest customers. And even though they don't like her, she's very boring. She's played very weirdly, like she could be a little bit mentally not quite there, and very rich, but a bit weird. Anyway, because they need her money, they go along with it. But anyway, she gets drunk at her own wedding, and Alma and him go to take the dress back. But it's Alma who says to him, she doesn't deserve this dress. And he realizes at that moment that this person, who he hates sometimes because she's a bit boorish herself, the way that she eats like a normal human, that this person understands him better than anyone, even better than Cyril, because she understands that no matter what the cost is, whether it's being poisoned, whether it's losing your best customer, that the dress, the art, the genius must be protected. And it's her who goes in and rips the dress off this drunken girl and takes it back. Because, and this will cost them probably lots of money, and they're really quite horrible about how they do it. It's a Bonnie and Clyde scene. At that moment, he realizes that whatever else is wrong, this woman, the only woman, maybe the only person in the whole world, understands him. And it's complete and utter love. It doesn't mean that he just goes along with everything, but this person understands him. It's a really good film. It's a very interesting film. Please go see it. It's probably only on at your art theatre. These are the films which must be supported. We're not going to get these films. They're going to go to Netflix like Cloverfield 1200, and we're not going to see these gems if we don't go and support them. This is the great thing about Academy Awards, because it forces you to sometimes go out your comfort zone. This is a great film on all levels. Please go see it. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe, and you can hit the bell. You always know when I've got new stuff. And I'm on Twitter at Guru Eden, and they keep coming. Ladybird will be next, and that'll be the last. If you haven't worked out, I would have seen all the films nominated for Best Picture at the 2018 Academy Awards. Okay, bye.